Tucked away in one of the most beautiful parts of Australia is the Upper Yarra Valley, a town called Warburton and a school called Warburton Primary. Welcome to Warburton Primary School's community gardens. Historically a tennis court used by guests at a nearby B&B and surrounded by massive cypress trees, the site was transformed in 2007 as part of a school improvement program, whereby the old and hazardous trees were removed and a plan of establishing a generous area of community gardens was implemented, with the vision of a space to be shared by the children and the broad community. With the generous support of our community banks, a large storage shed and adjacent outdoor classroom were built, while the federal government funding provided ample infrastructure to store and retrieve rainwater for the gardens. School children, parents and teachers all chipped in to establish a circle of fruit trees, reflecting the original border of cypresses, which became the focal point for garden activity. Over following years, many new garden beds were constructed. There are currently about 20 in all, new plantings established and improvements made to equipment and infrastructure. By general agreement, gardeners follow organic principles and employ synthetic chemicals only when absolutely necessary, for example, snail bait. Cohar Community Cafe became the first local group to establish a presence in the Warby Primary Gardens in spring 2010 and now runs 8 plots there, supplying fresh local produce to the cafe 46 weeks of the year. As part of its broader mission of helping build community skills and resilience, Cohar has also developed a free and very comprehensive course called What's to Eat, which will be based on this site during 2014 and hopefully beyond. Enjoy this brief tour of our gardens at one of the most exciting times of the year for enthusiasts, autumn. Behind the shed here, Fiona, Cohar's much-loved chef, established our first bed more than 3 years ago. Since then, we've improved and extended the space. We've recently started transitioning over to winter and spring crops. Here are some of our new plantings. There's broad beans, which love their lime. There's some silver beet, which we've just started cropping. There's some broccoli, some flat leaf parsley to the right, which is a perennial but needs regular pruning. There's some kale tucked away under that basket. Here's a cherry tree that's just starting to produce well. That's a pot that we use for mint because mint tends to take over garden beds. There's a few things in this bed. We've got rhubarb. Then we've got some chives and leeks. The leeks are recently planted. Then asparagus. Coming around to the other side, we've got more kale. And I think that's kale again. And up the back, we've got some tomato plants that are still producing, but I'm getting a bit tired, as you can see. This bed here is dominated by a big passion fruit vine, but shares its space with berry plants, including a currant and a gooseberry, a little overgrown at the moment. Further down, we have some raspberries, just coming to the end of their season, but fruiting a little. And at the very end is a cardamom plant which stubbornly refuses to flower and set seed. Let's look at some community infrastructure. This is a salvaged 500 litre rainwater tank which offers a handy alternative to the main supply. Here we have an aero bin, a composting system designed locally in the Upper Yarra and sold internationally. One of its many features is a catchment at the base, from which, through a hose, we drain liquid waste into bottles, dilute and use as an organic fertiliser. We use this bin for making liquid fertiliser from pesky weeds. Over here are 2 mountain pepper plants, a bush food endemic to our part of Victoria. They're growing beneath a protective canopy of taller trees and shrubs as they can be sensitive to direct sunlight over the first few years. Moving on, this is our hot compost pile, which has been in operation for several years now. Next to it is our burn-off pile where we store organic waste which isn't suitable for composting. This pile is regularly cleared and burnt. In the distance you can see our two 20,000 litre rainwater tanks, which provide the main water supply for the gardens. The primary water supply is delivered to these taps, one of which is plumbed into a drip irrigation system. Let's look at a few trees and shrubs that have been planted over the years. There's a grapefruit that crops every couple of years. There's a feijoa in the foreground with a peach behind it and a persimmon to the right. There's another feijoa, another fig. All of these figs are self-seeded and some of them are quite productive. There's quite a few more peaches as well, some of which I think are self-seeded. There we have a quince, I think. Yes, that's a quince. And there's 3 or 4 olive trees planted on the block, which are flowering but not fruiting yet. This is a very important bed run by Koha. It's a no-dig bed, built entirely out of organic materials and very, very, very productive. Essentially, no-dig beds are almost completely made up of organic matter, very little soil, but including materials such as hay, manure, compost, comfrey leaves, etc., plus wood ash, and offer an excellent growing medium. This is our new tyre garden, a work in progress which provides a little extra growing space, habitat for local wildlife, there's a pond in there, and a retreat for humans from the main garden area. A very brief rundown of the last 3 Koha beds. There's our sweet chilli, there's a feverfew tucked in there. There's some lemongrass and warrigal greens, cherry tomatoes. There's a wicking box we use for herbs, quite successful. Some rescued asparagus in the tyre stacks there. There's one of our compost bins. There's some fennel tucked away on the right hand side. There's some beautiful foxgloves. On the left is our strawberry patch there, which is due for a rebuild over winter. Further up this bed we have several varieties of hot chilies, including the beautiful bell peppers, 2 kinds of parsley down the bottom there. There's some chives on the right hand side in the corner. Yet another compost bin. We love our compost at Koha. There's some chook manure in that big green bin, kindly donated to us. There's some snow peas, just coming to the end of the season but still producing. There's a celery bed down there. Up the top of the frame there's some nasturtiums which you use in salad. Down the bottom there's carnations because we like our ornamentals, more flat leaf parsley. There's our eggplants that are just coming to the end of their season after a very successful summer. And at the back of that bed are asparagus. Last but not least, here is the outdoor classroom, which is occasionally used by the school and will of course be employed for the What's to Eat project. I'll bet you're wondering what's in the shed.
Well,
enrolments for the What's to Eat 10-week course closed on the 15th of April 2014. However, we hope to run the program on a regular basis, so feel free to copy the details provided and contact Jude regarding future opportunities to participate.